What's up, everyone? Mark here. Welcome to the Prepared Pantry and part 2 of our Recreating Ma Glockner series. You'll remember last week we recreated the coconut cream pie. Check that out if you haven't already. This week we are going to be tackling the cinnamon rolls. Now, next week we are going to do the chicken, and I've been working hard to come up with a way to recreate the recipe. Long story short, I don't think it's necessarily as secretive as some people might think it is. There's actually quite a bit of information out there about what it is. We'll talk more about that next week. But we are going to actually try 2 different ways of preparing the chicken, and we'll get to the same ends where we do a flat iron grill for the final cooking. But it is just such amazingly tender and delicious and flavorful chicken with a crispy outside. It's just unmatched. There's no other way to get this type of chicken that I've ever found. So hopefully I'm able to match that. We will see. But again, working backwards, today we are going to tackle the cinnamon rolls. Now, the cinnamon rolls were Ma Glockner's house bread. You could have as few or as many as you wanted while you waited for your meal, during your meal, after your meal, while you had coffee and dessert. Just amazing. Just a real treat unto themselves. The cinnamon rolls were just absolutely delicious. An unmatched sort of dry chew, sweetness, and the cinnamon flavor. There's just nothing else like them, and it's going to be kind of hard to recreate, I think. But after a bit of experimenting, I think I have come up with a recipe that is going to hit the mark. Hopefully, because I don't want to be doing this too many times, but I think this one is going to be pretty dead on. So before we get started, I want to thank you all again so much for your continued support and for watching these videos. Give the video a thumbs up if you like it. Share your favorite video on social media. Subscribe, most of all, please subscribe if you have not already. Click the red button down below or the watermark over in the corner of the video. When you do, make sure you hit the bell icon so you get a notification every time I have a new video out. All right, with that, we are ready to get started. Let's take a look at our ingredients. Okay, before we start, I do want to mention right off the bat that this is a good opportunity to use your stand mixer. This dough is going to knead with the dough hook for a good 8 to 10 minutes, and you can imagine what that would be like to do by kneading by hand. That's not to say that it's impossible, just that it's going to be a lot of work. So I would definitely recommend using your mixer if you have one. For our ingredients, we're going to need 10 ounces of whole milk. This is going to be warmed to 105 degrees to start. We're going to just do that like 15-second increments in the microwave. You could do it on the stovetop if you needed to too, but we're going to just monitor it and make sure that it doesn't get too hot and that it gets to at least 105. We are going to need 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. That is active dry yeast, red pill, not blue pill. Red package is usually the active dry yeast. Blue package is usually the instant fast-acting yeast. There are some ways in which they're interchangeable. There are conversions to do either one if you need to. I tend to like the active dry yeast because part of the process is blooming the yeast and making sure that it's good, and you know if you've got bad yeast right up front and you haven't dumped it into everything else yet. We're going to need 6 tablespoons of white sugar. We're going to need 5 to 5.5 cups of bread flour. We are using bread flour because higher protein content, a little bit more chew that is sort of distinctive of Ma Glockner's cinnamon rolls. I suppose you could use all-purpose flour in a pinch, but I think to get the best match, bread flour is going to be the best bet. We're going to need 1.5 teaspoons of salt. We're going to need 6 tablespoons of butter, which we will melt before we add it. We need 3 eggs. And then for the filling, we are going to need 2 whole sticks of butter, which we're going to melt. Just haven't melted it yet because we're not ready for it. And I have already whisked together in this bowl half a cup of granulated white sugar, half a cup of brown sugar, and a full tablespoon of ground cinnamon. Okay, now before we get started, I'm going to warm up my milk and set aside the stuff that we don't need yet. I'll be right back. Okay, so to get started, we're going to add our milk to the work bowl of the mixer. And don't worry if it gets too hot, just allow it to cool until it's at the proper temperature before you go and add it. We're going to add our yeast and our sugar. Now, because high concentrations of salt can kind of mess with how the yeast works. I'm going to go ahead and whisk the salt into the flour a little bit just to get it dispersed so that it won't cause a problem there. Then I'm going to whisk together the sugar, yeast, and milk mixture. Okay, and we're going to let this sit for about 5 minutes just to let it bloom and give the yeast a head start. Okay, as you can see and as I can smell, the yeast is definitely doing its thing. So we're going to go ahead and add our eggs and melted butter. I'm going to add the eggs first because they are cooler. I don't want the melted butter to do anything bad to the yeast. Oh. And I got kind of a funky egg there. See, this is why you always check. And I'm just gonna break up the eggs a bit and get them kind of mixed in here. And that's good and combined. Now we're gonna add our butter. Okay, we're gonna get the mixer started. And we're going to slowly start to add the flour a little at a time. Now I'm going to let this continue to go on medium, maybe a little slower for, like I said, a good 8 to 10 minutes. We're looking for a smooth, elastic dough that is completely stuck to the dough hook and doesn't leave any dry flour residue behind on the bowl. And we don't want it to be too sticky. Okay, so this has been going for a good 10 minutes now. Get the dough off of the dough hook. And halfway through, I did make sure that it wasn't climbing the hook too much, and I flipped it so that some of the dough that was at the bottom of the bowl was, you know, make sure that it was getting mixed too. So, okay, so this looks good. Nice, smooth, pliable dough. We're going to cover this with plastic wrap and put this in a warm area until it just about doubles in size. That should be anywhere from about 30 to 60 minutes. Okay, it's been about 45 minutes and the dough has just about doubled in size. We are going to put some flour out on our surface here. Let's get our dough out onto the work surface. Okay, now we want to try and get this stretched and rolled out into a roughly 18 by 24 inch rectangle. And you can see I'm kind of trying to use how aerated the dough is to my advantage. If I had punched it all down completely inside the bowl before I tipped it out, I would have been working against all that stretch. And if it's not exact, that's fine too. You know, cinnamon rolls are a kind of uneven product to begin with, and I tend to like them kind of rustic looking anyway. We're pretty close. Okay, I'm going to melt our butter, and we're going to spread about half of it on our dough. And spread about half of this. All over the surface of the dough. Okay, now we're going to sprinkle the sugar cinnamon mixture over the entire surface. Okay, and now we are going to roll up. Now if you roll from the long end, you can cut them into roughly 1-inch slices, get some smaller cinnamon rolls. If you fold it on the short end, cut them into 1.5, 2-inch slices, and you can make larger cinnamon rolls. We're gonna go on the smaller side, I think, just because I'm not sure how big these are going to get, and we don't want to overdo it. We want to roll this up as tightly as possible. And while we're doing this, we're just going to be careful to try not to let it spill out the edges. Okay. Now I'm going to go get my prepared pan. I have already prepared a rimmed baking sheet, buttered it, lined it with parchment paper, and then buttered it again. So give me just a minute to get a little bit out of the way, get the pan over here, and we'll start slicing and laying these out. All right, let's start cutting some cinnamon rolls. So I buttered a serrated knife, and we're just going to cut these into roughly 1-inch slices. I'm going to start placing them in the middle of the sheet because I'm not quite sure how many they're going to be and how much space it's going to take up. And because we're going for that sort of square look that you get when you bake these in a square pan because they're in a grid and they all bump into one another, I'm going to kind of work from the middle out so that we keep it nice and even. If I were to just sort of start in a corner, and it might be kind of lopsided, it might be kind of hard to keep them cooking evenly in the oven. So let's just get this underway. All right, these are going to go into a warm area to proof for about 20-30 minutes while the oven is preheating to 350, and then we will put these in to bake. Okay, these have finished proofing for about 25 minutes. The oven is preheated. These are going to go in a 350-degree oven for about 15-20 minutes until they are thoroughly browned. And we're going to take them out and immediately coat them with the remaining butter. And then they'll just need a few minutes to cool a little bit and come together so that we can eat them. They do not need to cool completely. In fact, I think they're probably even going to be better served hot. So let's get these into the oven. All right, these are hot out of the oven. Emphasis on hot. The last real step here is going to be to brush these thoroughly with butter, the remaining melted butter. And I'm really just taking care to get a good dousing of butter on all of these and over every surface, which I've almost done. And as you can see, there's still plenty of butter left. So the rest of this, we're just going to kind of pour down the middle of all of the buns. There. And in a completely optional last minute step here, I'm going to give these a nice little sprinkling of some cinnamon sugar mix. And this is just going to melt and dissolve into all that hot butter. All right, I'm gonna give these about 5 minutes-ish to cool a little bit, just enough to let all that butter soak in. And then we are gonna give these a taste. All right, I cannot wait to dig into these. Now, I have to say, these look pretty spot on for Glockner's cinnamon rolls. I think the Glockner's rolls might be a little darker, but I'll chalk that up to me not having baked these long enough. These ended up going for about 25-30 minutes, I think I had them. Probably could have had them go a little bit longer, or maybe even put them back in or under the broiler for a minute or so after the butter went on to kind of caramelize the tops. But they look about as close as I think I'm going to get after several attempts. I think we got it. That's not exact, but I would say that's pretty close. It's got that firm, flaky, but chewy texture. Well, I don't know how you can go wrong with any cinnamon roll, ever. But these for sure are delicious. So that's 2 down now. 1 to go. Next week we're doing the chicken. If you like the recipe, give the video a thumbs up. We'll see you in the next one.